This is the Great North Wrestling Podcast, the official podcast of the Hannibal TV, Canada's #1 pro wrestling YouTube channel, with your host, three-time Canadian champion and GNW lead reporter, Devin Hannibal Nicholson.
This is Hannibal from thehannibaltv.com, and on the line right now I have a guest who I'm going to be doing a full career shoot interview with in a couple of weeks when I'm in the Tampa area. You fans can write any questions, suggestions you have for me for that interview in the comments. But he is a former MMA fighter, amateur wrestling champion, and wrestling fans probably know him best for his time in WCW. Sergeant Craig Pitbull Pittman, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing fine. It's good to be with you folks.
And you're living in Virginia now, I understand it.
No, actually, I'm living in Hilton Head, South Carolina.
Oh, yeah, sorry, South Carolina, yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. We were talking Virginia earlier. That's why you said that.
Yeah, there's a big fan convention coming up in Virginia in May, so that's why it was in my head. We're not going to delve into anything deep here because we'll save it for the career interview, but you want to just let everyone know what you've been up to the past few years since WCW?
Wow, the Pitbull is up to a lot of stuff, man. But I retired in 2015 from the sheriff's office in Tampa, Hillsborough County. I was a special security guy. You guys would probably call that SWAT in any other capacity. But we handled high-profile stuff, and it was a very interesting career. It's all that stuff you see on TV. But I retired from that in 2015. I didn't stay retired. I'm now here in South Carolina with my wife, who is she has an alteration shop here, and she's from Russia. My wife is Russian, and that was her career in Russia. So we moved here to South Carolina, where she came to the States, and I picked up my career in private security. I worked for this community, Indigo Run. It's a bunch of millionaires, and they hired their own police force for their community. So I have the same authorities as the sheriff deputies out on the road, but within the community. So that's what I do now. It's police work, basically police work, and that's what I'm doing currently.
When was your last actual professional wrestling match? Was that the match you had with Brent a few years ago?
Yeah, I would say, with Brent. I guess you saw that match, yeah.
It was a shoot-style match, I guess.
Yeah, he was trying to develop a concept that involved professional wrestling and shoot wrestling. And that was his idea, and he bought a ring, and he was trying to get that off the ground. And so we being good friends, I said, oh, yeah, sure, I'll help out. We'll do what we need to do. And, I got in the ring with him a few times and tried to get this idea off the ground, this shoot wrestling idea. But I don't think that it did get off the ground. But that's okay. It was a really interesting concept, and I love the amateur wrestling as well as the professional wrestling. I love them both, so it was good for me anyway.
How's your body holding up after all those years of wrestling, MMA, and all the military stuff you were doing?
Oh, I'll tell you, after a long career, we'll get into all of that later in our interview, but after a long career of all of that, of course there's going to be a little body damage. I actually retired in 2015 a little early. We had a great retirement program in the sheriff's office, but I actually got pretty sick. For those fans who didn't know that, I developed this diabetes thing, and it really took me off track for a while there. I almost died twice, to tell the truth. But I lost 100 pounds from my ordeals. But with a good diet and staying on top of things, I'm no longer sick. I no longer have it. I reversed everything. So other than my weight loss, I'm great now. I feel wonderful. So everything's going good.
And you've had a lot of success since WCW in the private life outside of wrestling. Do you have any advice for younger wrestlers so that they don't go down the path that a lot of wrestlers have gone after their careers end in the spotlight?
Yes, I do. Let me first say that wrestling has been a big part of my life. Wrestling has. I tell kids when I do talks for the kids and stuff. I tell them, wrestling has carried me all around the world, and through wrestling, I've been able to have millions of fans, and I've traveled the entire world, and I've made a little bit of money in wrestling. But due to the fact of the love of the sport and not giving up. When I first started wrestling in elementary and the junior years there, I lost every match for 3 years. I'm not joking. I lost every match for 3 years right through before I got into high school. But I love the sport so much, I stuck with it. If I had quit in those moments when I was losing, I would have never realized the life that I have now. And that's the biggest plan. And I guess I'm saying, don't quit. If you are have a passion for it, if you love what you do, don't quit. Just continue in there, and things will happen. Things will happen, and that's what happened to me.
Do you follow pro wrestling or MMA now?
A little bit. I do a little bit of YouTubing on it. The MMA and the pro wrestling. Of course, it's a little bit different world than when I was coming through this stuff. So, but it's interesting to watch. Even the amateur wrestling now is so much different. The style is different. Everything about it's different. But they have some incredible athletes out there. These guys they're something else.
It's nice to see amateur wrestling has actually become more popular in recent years, I think partly due to UFC's success.
Yes, the guys like Jordan Burroughs, these guys, this Jordan Burroughs is incredible. He's so entertaining to watch, it's fun to watch guys like this out there. And with that, with it being so much more entertaining, I can see where people have started to pick up on this sport, Before it was very boring. You couldn't fill the bleachers if you wanted to, Yeah.
And we're going to get into this in a lot more detail in your full interview, but you were telling me earlier that you actually were on the same wrestling team as Randy Couture, and that speaking of other wrestlers that went into MMA, he had one of the most successful careers ever.
Yes, he did.
Any quick thoughts on your friendship with Couture?
Yes, I love him. He's a great individual, a really down-to-earth person, and I couldn't say a bad thing if I wanted to about Randy. He's good, and he's also a tough individual. This guy, man, he's tough. But I come from the same blood that he does. He was on the Army wrestling team. I was on the U.S. Marine Corps wrestling team at the time. We were rivals, but good friends. We traveled together when we made inter-service teams. That's all of the forces. The champions from all of the forces come together to form the World Championship team. And we did that, and we were honored this summer for one of our quests on the World Championship team. We went to Palermo, Sicily, and won the World Championships. The Iranians were our top competition there, but we won both styles, both the freestyle and Greco-Roman, and became the success story for the year '88, which was the Olympic year. But they didn't really recognize it because of the Olympics. So later on, they decided to recognize it. So that happened this year.
Were you in heavyweight, or were you the one?
I was a heavyweight.
Yeah, you were heavyweight.
Yes. When I won 5 military world championships, and I was the first American to win both styles. And the championship I'm talking about, I won both styles in this championship, both the Greco-Roman and freestyle, and that's a big feat.
Oh,
And,
yeah. I mean, I've actually won some titles in both Greco-Roman and freestyle, but they're two totally different
yes,
forms of wrestling. Two different.
yes,
It's very difficult to excel in both sports.
yeah, yeah. And I did this twice. I won double golds twice.
Wow.
So it's been a big thing for me, and I enjoy the success, and I'm glad that my Most High Father up above gave me the talent to do this. So it was a big deal, to do something.
And do you have any social media or anything? You've been off the radar the last few years, but I don't know if you're on Twitter or Facebook or anything like that.
Yeah, and actually I have a Facebook page. I haven't paid attention to it in a while. When I got sick, I kind of, like you said, went off the radar for a long while. I had to concentrate on other things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I still have a Facebook page, but I don't know how. I haven't been on it in a long time. I guess I should get back on and give the fans a little treat, huh?
Yeah, well, I think a good start will be your career interview, because we post the whole interview, but we also post maybe 5 to 10 clips of the highlights from the interview. So I think that's going to get fans talking about you.
Yeah, great. I would love it. Yeah, I would love to get back involved. I love the fans. One of the things that WCW, not a lot of the boys like to do these interviews. I was one of those guys who loved to get in with the kids, go and do the talk. But they would ask these guys to go to, like, the high schools in the area. At the time, we were at CNN in Georgia, Atlanta. And none of these guys would do it. But they would ask me, and, oh, yeah, I love this stuff. So I kind of became the WCW representative to go around to all the high schools and do all of this stuff that they didn't want to do,
That's interesting, because you were a heel. Maybe you were a babyface at some point, but I don't remember it. You seem to be a heel most of the time.
Exactly, and that was the problem. I was a heel doing all this stuff. Yeah, so it was pretty crazy, yeah. Even we would have to do 3 months' worth of filming. We would go down to Disney and what's the other park? Universal.
Yeah.
Sometimes at Disney and sometimes at Universal, we'd have to go down there and do 3 months worth of the Saturday Night Live show and all of that. So every 3 months we go down there and do that. But while we were there, you have access to the park, and you'd be on a break going somewhere, and kids would notice. I remember Lex Luger coming out, and we were leaving, going on a little break, and the kids recognized him, and he was shooing those kids away so fast, man, and I felt so bad for him. So then I went over to the kids and, hey, look, that's Pitbull Pittman, and I signed some autographs, and just to make up for what they couldn't get out of their real heroes.
Yeah, that's not the first story like that I've heard about Lex.
But yeah, and that's the way it was. So. And a lot of the guys were like that, but I'm a personable person. I love kids and, doing talks and things like that. So
it sounds like you should have been more of a Sergeant Slaughter character than the evil drill instructor.
Yeah. Well, when we get into the interview, you'll find out they really didn't know what to do with me.
Well, we're definitely going to give a detailed interview, and fans that are watching this voice interview, you can leave any questions you have for Mr. Pittman in the comments of this video, and I will write down the questions, and I'll be sure to ask him in the interview we're going to do in Florida in a few weeks. So we don't want to go into too much detail in this call, so is there any final thoughts you want to leave the fans for now before we do the big career interview in a couple weeks?
Oh, sure. By the way, I'm looking forward to our interview, and I'm coming down from South Carolina to do this interview with you. Looking forward to it. I missed the fans. I loved what I was doing. I absolutely had passion for that side of it, and the fans were a big part of that. I love the fans. I love you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Great North Wrestling Podcast. Subscribe to this podcast on iTunes and subscribe to the Hannibal TV on YouTube for all the latest GNW news and videos. Follow at Devin Hannibal on Twitter and check out our website at thehannibaltv.com.